Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, a special episode from the President House of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. We are very happy to have with us Sardar Masood Khan Saab, the newly elected President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Sir, thank you very much for taking out your precious time and talking to PTV World, sir. So now, since you have been nominated and you have been elected as the President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, obviously your responsibility is much more than it used to be earlier, since you have served as a very seasoned diplomat in various countries, in Geneva and USA as well. And you're considered to be somebody who has mastered the art of negotiations. Now, sir, since you're holding this particular position, what should we expect from you as the President, sir, regarding the Kashmir issue?
Of course, I'll use my skills, but Kashmir requires not only negotiating skills, but skills of advocacy and convincing the international community. Negotiations are relevant when you are having talks across the table or where there are contacts taking place between the interlocutors. And right now there are no talks going on. But before negotiations, before the process of negotiation starts, we must do convincing, assertive advocacy in regard to the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. And we must highlight the plight of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly in the AJ&K, Indian occupied Kashmir, because that's where gross and consistent violations of human rights are taking place. So yes, that perspective is there, my perspective on human rights, international law, international humanitarian law, international human rights law, that is relevant, but it's a political question. We have to decide the future, the political future of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And India is not responding to our overtures, to all our proposals, and therefore we have to have a very comprehensive strategy to highlight the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in Pakistan, in Azad Kashmir, and all around the world.
So as we all know now, today is the 60th day, as a matter of fact, since the curfew has been imposed there. Though there has been slight relaxation in certain areas, but in general, 2 months have passed. There's acute shortage of food. There's no clean drinking water. There's a miserable condition regarding law and order, and on top, there is no facility as far as the hospitals are concerned. They are closed. People have been practically dragged out of the hospitals and been sent to jails. According to the official figures, that has crossed 700, those people who have been flying through those pellet guns. More than 9,000 have been injured. Even yesterday, 100 people got injured. So there is a lot going on that front. And when our Prime Minister writes a letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations, which is written on Wednesday, the response from the Narendra Modi's government was, rather from him, was that they can write as many letters as they want. What exactly is that supposed to mean, sir?
Well, this is arrogance, and I'd say that the problem is there. The dispute of Jammu and Kashmir is there. It was there in 1947. It is still alive. It's a problem that India and Pakistan have to deal with. It's a problem that the United Nations is obligated to deal with. Therefore, I think that India cannot sweep these problems under the carpet, under no circumstances, because if they had been successful, they had occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian occupied Kashmir in 1947-48. They have failed to integrate or assimilate or absorb this territory of the people in the Indian Union. The problem is there. In accordance with international law, it's an international problem. It is on the agenda of the United Nations Security Council. It is a problem which has to be resolved in accordance with the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. We have to come up with a solution. And Mr. Modi decides to be dismissive about it, but he can't get away with it because his government and his military apparatus, the occupying military apparatus in AJ&K, is committing crimes against humanity. And this verges on genocide. They are culpable and they are accountable. So naturally, of course, they would like to hide their crimes. They're accountable to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, whose rights they have trampled. They are accountable to the international community. So this kind of arrogance from Mr. Modi is no solution. They are in a state of denial when they say that Kashmir is an integral part of India. It is not, because the people of Jammu and Kashmir have not given their consent in accordance with international law to being part of India. The other thing, the other aspect that you have mentioned, it's very disturbing, because we have seen pogroms and genocides in other parts of the world. We've seen these ethnic cleansings. But India has established new records in mass killings, in violation of human rights.
Would you consider that state-sponsored terrorism, sir?
Of course it is, state-sponsored. India talks about terrorism emanating from Kashmir or emanating from Pakistan. But there is terrorism, but it's state terrorism. It's state-led terrorism there. It's the armed forces, the occupying forces of India who are committing these crimes. And as far as the Kashmiris are concerned, they are entrapped. They do not have access to the outside world. Indians do not allow ICRC, UNHCR, UN OCHA, and other humanitarian organizations to establish a humanitarian corridor there. So it's an isolated, brutalized population. And India is committing worse crimes, which we have witnessed in the recent history.
That's correct.
I mean, you have turmoil in Syria and other Middle Eastern parts, and also, I mean, there are wars going on in Africa. But this is the worst kind of human rights violations that we see in India by the so-called largest democracy in the world.
So now, since the Prime Minister has asked to send a fact-finding commission or a mission, now, sir, what exactly would be the role if they send? And what would be the procedure, since the Prime Minister can only write to them? Then how do they take it up?
You mean the United Nations?
Yes, sir.
Well, let me tell you that here the crux of the matter is that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have to exercise their will, and they have to decide their political future. And as I said, that this has to be in accordance with the United Nations resolutions. So the United Nations is also a party to this dispute. They played the role of a mediator, a conciliator, also an enabler, and they have to play their role. Of course, the fact-finding mechanism, it's a very simple mechanism. It can be done by the United Nations General Assembly, but it can also be done by, more appropriately, the Human Rights Council. Correct. Because they dispatch such either special rapporteurs or special representatives. They establish working groups or fact-finding missions, so that they go to a territory, see what's happening, what are the grievances of the people, what kind of atrocities are being committed, and then they report back to the United Nations, the Human Rights Council, and they make a determination, and on the basis of the conclusions, they make some recommendations. But let me tell you that in addition to a fact-finding mission, there are many other avenues and conduits which are available. For instance, I think that the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, has been saying from time to time that he's ready for offer his good offices if both sides concur, and both sides are India and Pakistan. India is never going to concur. Therefore, I think that we can ask the Secretary General to unilaterally appoint a special representative or initiate his good offices, because India is never going to agree. They have to hide their crimes. And they do not want to expose the territory of Jammu and Kashmir to the outside world. Similarly, I think that a special rapporteur can be appointed by the Human Rights Council. I think that OIC has its own mechanism on Kashmir that should be activated. They have supported the Kashmir cause. Yeah, they have supported very consistently, with conviction. They have supported the cause of Kashmir and the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. That track could be pursued. So yes, we must, and in fact, I mean, one thing that we ought to be doing, I talked about humanitarian corridor. A humanitarian corridor should be established, because as you were giving this graphic description of the suffering of the people of Jammu and Kashmir in the past several days under curfew, more than 90 killed, 10,000 injured. Yes. More than 100 blinded.
700, that's the latest figure, sir.
Yes. So these are appalling figures, and these are abhorrent crimes. So I think that there should be a humanitarian corridor so that some succor, some assistance goes to the entrapped people of Jammu and Kashmir. This is one thing. The other, I would say that avenues that are available, that we should go to the diaspora community, to the US Congress, to European Union, to the European Parliament, where appropriate laws and opinions are made to intervene in such situations. It's a huge catastrophe. It's a man-made catastrophe. It's a catastrophe that has been crafted and unleashed by India.
Now, Masood Khan Sahab, another important point. Now, since looking at the importance, the emerging importance, let me put it this way, of India, the strategic alliance between USA and India means a lot. A lot of people believe that the strategic balance in the region is going to be changed. This Indian Ocean will get nuclearized, and a lot of other issues will erupt for sure. And definitely, when it comes to USA, they have a very clear-cut support for the Indians. And the recent statements of Mr. Kerry, and other than that, it seems as if Kashmir issue would be on the back burner. Sir, in such a state, what exactly do we need to do? And please do also tell us about the 6-point agenda which you presented to the
Yes, I'll talk about the agenda a little later, but let me talk about the world order. You know, you would recall that in the interwar period, last century, many injustices were committed, and as a result, the European nations went to war, and America had to intervene. And then, of course, the nations of Europe and North America, they fought the bloodiest war in the history of the world, the Second World War. But they saw this mass suffering of the people all around the world. The war was not contained within the boundaries of Europe. It spread all over the world. That's why it's called World War II. And as a result of the devastation of that war, they came up with this new vision called the United Nations. And they crafted and drafted this charter. And they made a new beginning. Now, at that time, the nations of the world decided that they would not be guided by their narrow national interests or by their economic interests or their narrow strategic interests, that they would think of the world peace. The reason I'm giving you this preface is because if the United States, which is still leading the world order, it's a preeminent nation in the world order, if it makes decisions on the basis of its national, economic, and mercantile interests, and on the basis of expediency, then there would be a distortion in the world order. Here is a country, the supreme leader of the world, which has strategic interests and alignments with India, and we understand that. And on the other hand, you have the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. There has to be a fair dispensation. And you can't just take all the decisions on the basis of realpolitik. Mm-hmm. After all, the United States is the champion of human rights and liberty and freedom all over the world. They owe their own independence to these ideals. Let's not forget. This is what the Kashmiris are asking for, no less, no more. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is a time for rethinking their strategy, rethinking and giving this protection to India for committing these crimes. You said that what are the 6 points? As a matter of fact, let me elaborate those 6 points. My 6 points are that we have to highlight the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. It lost momentum. The highlighting or the projection of the Jammu and Kashmir over the decades has been spasmodic. It has been sporadic. There have been highs and lows.
So you believe that the genuine effort wasn't there?
No, a genuine effort was made. If there was no genuine effort made by the successive governments and state institutions, Kashmir issue would not be alive today. The Kashmir issue is alive in Muzaffarabad and Islamabad, in Srinagar, in New York, and other world capitals. This is because of the successive generations who've been investing their time and energy. in highlighting the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. But the effort has not been critical. That is what I want to point out, and therefore we have to go a notch higher, or several notches higher, to make our effort
More
critical.
meaningful, yeah.
Meaningful. And I've been talking to different audiences in the recent past, and I've been saying that up to now we've been doing politics of helplessness, of protest, of despondence, of failure. Let's put success on the table and try to achieve success. Let's try to succeed in the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And that's the core point in my 6-point agenda, which is first we consolidate our position within Azad Kashmir and Pakistan so that we do not speak with multiple voices, that we have a unified stance. And second, we go to the diaspora community, who also equally who want to advocate the issue of Jammu and Kashmir with equal vehemence. So these are 2 points, as a matter of fact, the diaspora community in Pakistan, people in Pakistan and Azad Kashmir. Then we should go to the United Nations. I mean, we've been going there, but we should go there consistently, courageously, and we should go there with a compelling narrative on Kashmir.
Because so that they can be persuaded, yeah?
Yes, and as we were saying earlier, that it's the United Nations Security Council, the General Assembly, its affiliate bodies, Human Rights Council. But I mentioned in passing that we have to go to the US Congress, because many decisions are being taken in the US Congress, and their Indian American communities influencing decision making and law making there in regard to Pakistan, in regard to South Asia, in regard to Kashmir, where they obfuscate everything.
Isn't that a challenge and a half? That's the real challenge out there.
We do have Pakistani American community. We do have Kashmiri American community there. And
are they strong advocates for the cause?
Yes, of course. They're smaller in number,
okay,
but they're well connected. So I think that this is another avenue. I've seen and sensed sympathy for the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in Europe, in all European Union countries, in the United Kingdom, where we have our diaspora. Irrespective of diaspora, I think that the state policies of European countries are anchored in the principles of human rights and humanitarian law, so we can go there. And finally, I think that this we haven't done in the past. You know, sometimes we have witnessed this, that you have some voices in Pakistan who support India's point of view, if not directly, indirectly. But we do not have a lobby in India. We have not reached out to Indian civil society.
And how do we do that, sir?
I think by speaking directly to them or reaching out to them through the media, because no society, no state in its entirety can be without conscience. And I think that there would be many opinion leaders in India who would be amenable to our point of view, and they could become allies for paving the way for realization of the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people.
So now, talking about the issue, obviously that's a very genuine indigenous movement for freedom. It's a homegrown movement, obviously. A lot of people, when they talk about it, this is the time when, you know, enough killing has been done there. What else to sacrifice now? Their houses, they've been burnt, their property has been confiscated by the Indian, then the demographics, they've been changed on purpose. Look at the example they are setting by shooting on their faces, sir. I mean, you're talking about 600-700 people, youngsters primarily, are blind now. They won't be able to see. So the atrocities, I mean, they've crossed a certain level, a certain mark. Since you have also served in the United Nations as a permanent representative in Geneva, I mean, it's twice and sometimes it's twice a year, there's this convention on human rights, sir. Are you satisfied as far as our effort over there is concerned, sir? Or if not, what needs to be done?
I think our effort is very good. The Prime Minister, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, he's written to the United Nations Secretary General. He's been in touch with him, and we've been making statements. We have communicated to the President of the Security Council, also the President of the Human Rights Council, High Commissioner for Human Rights based in Geneva. We're doing our bit, we're doing whatever we can, but I think naturally we need to see to it that our efforts, our communications resonate with the international citizenry, and we have to create that impact. I think that if it was any other situation, the United Nations would have been activated. I mean, we have to see why the United Nations hamstrung. I mean, if it was Central African Republic or South Sudan, or situation in Sudan itself, or East Africa or West Africa, the United Nations would have been activated. I recall that when there was a killing in France during the same period, I think when these killings in Kashmir took place, the entire United Nations Security Council stood up to mourn those deaths as a result of terrorism in France. But they did not stand up for the people of Kashmir.
Now, what is the reason, sir? Now, that is the question.
It's double standards, basically.
Primarily, that is the issue.
It's just double standards. And I think that, yes, the onus is on us to steer strong advocacy, but I think that the onus is also on the international community. Because if a massacre is taking place somewhere, and these are peaceful demonstrators, and these are people who have no guns in their hands, they were going to the funerals of Burhan Wani, and they were butchered and killed and maimed and blinded. The international community should have empathized with them, and they should have, in fact, issued condemnatory statements. But I think that the international community so far has been very cautious. We have to break that pattern of caution in regard to India.
Now, since we always talk about that the situation in Kashmir is very fluid, it is something which is a matter of concern not only for Pakistan or India, but for the entire region, sir. And plus on top, now we've also learnt that the Prime Minister has actually mobilized 22 of his members of the National Assembly to go out, to reach out and to sort of advocate this particular cause of Kashmir, sir. We'll definitely talk about that, but right now we'll just have to take a short break. We'll take a break and we'll return and we'll continue our discussion with the President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan sahab. Welcome back. We are talking to the President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan sahab. Khan sahab, the last question was about the nomination of 22 members of the Parliament by the Prime Minister Mohammad Nawaz Sharif sahab to go out and do advocacy, to raise this concern, to sort of market the Kashmir cause. What about that? Do you think that's a genuine effort, sir? Will it make any difference?
It's a very good step taken by the Prime Minister. In fact, I mean, the impact would be created by these people showing up at different capitals. That also gives a strong signal that Pakistan is serious about the issue, that Pakistan's parliament is serious about this issue. The second is their solidarity with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, because they're not talking about the plight of the Kashmiris only here in Islamabad or in Pakistan, but they're going out, they're fanning out to take this message to different capitals, to different interlocutors. This is one thing. The other, as I said, the solidarity with the people of in Jammu and Kashmir, because this sends a very good signal to Srinagar, because people there are suffering. and they think that they have allies. The other day I called on the Speaker of the National Assembly, and he's very proactive. He's reached out to his counterparts, other speakers of parliaments all around the world, and he's leveraging his strength as a leader to get attention on Jammu and Kashmir. And he's also planning a mega conference on Kashmir in October.
Okay.
And is making all those preparations. So when it's the Prime Minister himself who has the executive, the government of Pakistan, and when the Speaker, who represents the Parliament, expresses and demonstrates such solidarity with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, it sends a very strong signal. Kashmiris would get the message that they are not isolated, that the entire population of Pakistan, which is represented by the Parliament, is behind them.
Second point, sir, when we talk about this movement, and especially when it is gaining momentum, recently it has emerged as the real problem in Kashmir, sir, Indian occupied Kashmir, and the amount of Indian forces that are there. These people cannot even move out. As I earlier mentioned, there's curfew imposed. There is the height of atrocities going on out there. When there are certain circumstances, sir, and when we talk about the international media, that seems to be very silent. If there is another issue anywhere in the world, so they'll go off. Like earlier you mentioned about France, for about 9-10 consecutive days, sir, CNN was reporting about that. And look at the number of people being killed in Kashmir and whatsoever going on. There's not been a single report on Kashmir cause or the issue or whatever is happening out there. The international media, the role, sir, do you think that has also been under some sort of an influence of the Western powers or the Indians for that matter, sir?
It is, in fact. I mean, Indians have, and Indian Americans, they have penetrated into the world news agencies and media networks, and they're influencing the editorial content on Kashmir and also reporting. So that's a fact of life, and I think it's a challenge to Pakistanis and Kashmiris to enhance their capacity and build new competencies to deal with this onslaught of accusations against them, because they're the victims and they're the ones who are being demonized. That's a big challenge. I think that you also mentioned this lukewarm response from the media, and that's there from the governments also, very cautious. I've seen some reports, some very cursory reporting in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, and
there was one report in BBC also.
BBC has been reporting because it has some affinity with the region. It has more familiarity with the region, so it has been reporting. But it's not enough. And the onus is not on these portals. The onus is not on all these news. The onus is on us, as a matter of fact. We have to take our story, our narrative, to them. And we have to be very proactive about it and very competent, because telling a story requires competence, ingenuity, skill, and we have to develop those skills. The other thing you also mentioned, this horrendous terrorist attack in France. We condemn it. It was abominable. Pakistan, Kashmiris, we are against terrorism, all forms and manifestations. No doubt about that. But I think that there should be some balance in reporting.
Absolutely.
And the reporting about Kashmir has been lopsided, or it has, I mean, this time around, I think that they haven't distorted the things happening, tragic things happening in IOK. But there has been inadequate reporting. It never made the headlines in Western media. But as I told you, that despite all the hurdles and impediments, the resolution of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to take their struggle to its final conclusion has not been undermined by Indian atrocities. The fifth generation is holding the torch of freedom.
Yes.
And the crimes that India is committing are not going to be forgiven by the present generation or the future generations. They are unforgivable, and India is accountable for all these crimes. And we would remember it and will continue our struggle. We've been trying to talk to them. We've been inviting them to talks, because Kashmiris are peace-loving people. And Pakistan has been in this constant quest for peace, but India has been dismissive about these talks, or it has been very evasive about our talks process. They have construed that when Pakistanis and Kashmiris talk about talks, it's a sign of weakness. Well, we do believe in diplomacy, in negotiations, in engagement. And I think that they would have to come to the negotiating table. And you had also mentioned in passing that Pakistan and India are nuclear weapon states. There's nuclear deterrence in place between the two countries. They can't go to a war because a war would be a very devastating option for both nations, for South Asia, for the international community. But this kind of hiatus that has emerged doesn't mean that it is going to kill the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Their rights are intact. They are inherent and inalienable rights, and you can't quash and kill them. These rights would be realized. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir, with the help of the people of Pakistan and the state of Pakistan, are determined to continue to struggle for their rights.
So when we talk about the support from Pakistan, and recently there were a lot of statements issued by the advisor to the Prime Minister on Foreign Affairs, or the Foreign Office in general, by the Prime Minister himself, and also one of the statements I'll quote was from the Defence Minister, Asif Saab. And he said that as long as Narendra Modi is in power, forget about the talks. Now, it seems that the government of BJP is sort of taking a very strong stance, and they will never ever engage in talks with Pakistan, and in particular about the Kashmir issue. So how do you see that aspect? If there are no talks, nothing is going to go forward.
We all know that Mr. Modi, before he was elected as the Prime Minister, was seen as a pariah because of the Gujarat killings. But after that, after his election, he's been baptized as a hero by the Indians and by the international community. And they have this love fest going on with Mr. Modi. But Mr. Modi hasn't changed his color or his motto or objectives. And he's very hawkish on Kashmir. He's been very dismissive about talks on Kashmir. And yes, we are facing that frustration. And he's been directly or indirectly escalating the situation and blaming Pakistan for all the troubles. But we know that this is their device to divert attention. They have a Kashmir problem, and it is not an internal problem of India. It is a bilateral and regional international problem. So I would say that yes, I think this assessment is quite right. I think at one point he relented a bit. I don't know whether that was because of some internal pressure or because of the international persuasion. That last year he came to Lahore, and a 10-point agenda was finalized between Pakistan and India for starting comprehensive talks, comprehensive dialogue.
It used to be earlier the composite dialogue.
But it was scuppered by India itself. I mean, Pakistan was very keen to start that negotiating process or that dialogue process, but India undermined it and sabotaged it completely. So I think that track record supports that assessment about Mr. Modi. But Pakistan and the Kashmiris are on moral high ground. They have opted for this moral platform. And we would not abandon our struggle for the rights of the Kashmiris, for the freedom of the Kashmiris, or for the path of diplomacy.
Another statement regarding CPEC from the Indian authorities. It says that the CPEC is actually, when you look at the top from Kashgar all the way down to Gawada, it is going to pass to Azad Jammu and Kashmir in certain areas. And they believe that we are opposing it because it's a disputed territory. What is your take on that?
Well, I think India's stance is very disingenuous because they never talked about this territory being disputed. They always said that it is an internal.
They have also included
not about
Gilgit
Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir. they would never talk about Kashmir. They would avoid it. But this time they invoked this disputed nature of the territory. And I said it is disingenuous because they've been doing all sorts of developments in Indian-occupied Kashmir. And although it's a disputed territory, it is shown as disputed territory in the United Nations maps, and I mean the decisions in regard to the future of Kashmir have to be taken by its people through a plebiscite. That is an unfinished agenda. So yes, they have talked about, they have objected to CPEC, but I think that their real objection to CPEC is that Pakistan should not become a prosperous country, that Pakistan should not develop economically and with such speed and precision. So that is their apprehension. That's why they have been invoking this. They want to destabilize Pakistan from inside. They want to see Pakistan as an economically backward country. And that is the objection. We've dismissed that objection. Chinese, in fact, all said and done, have dismissed and rejected that objection. Some European countries and Americans have counseled them not to raise the ante about CPEC. And in fact, because when CPEC is completed, it is going to integrate the whole territory of Pakistan and connect it very firmly to China. But it would usher in prosperity for the entire region.
Yes.
For South Asia and Central Asia, Southwest Asia, and even up to Africa.
And this could be a game changer for Afghanistan also, sir. Because if Afghanistan prospers, there is going to be peace out there as well. So when we talk about the problem solving, I think this is a great initiative taken by both the countries, sir.
Yes, absolutely. And as far as the people of Azad Jammu and Kashmir are concerned, they have the strong aspiration that they should be part of CPEC. They're already part of CPEC because you have the Neelam Jhelum hydropower project. You also have Kohala hydropower project. We're constructing another project which is Mahal. It's between Azad Patan and Kohala. So I think, the Chinese have been involved in the upgradation of the Mangla Dam and in the reconstruction of the earthquake hit areas, the earthquake that hit Azad Kashmir back in 2005. We want to be part of this network because CPEC, as you know, is not a road, it's a network. It's a network for development, for connectivity.
Absolutely.
We want to be part of that network. And if India is wise, it should not object to CPEC. It should also be part of CPEC in the long run.
So talking about the current government in IOK, which is of PDP, People's Democratic Party, and Mehbooba Mufti is the person looking after the affairs out there. And then obviously BJP has their own ministers installed. Whenever they're in power, sir, whosoever, I mean, they're so pro-India. And the moment they are in opposition, for example, Mr. Omar Abdullah and his party, since they're in opposition, they would always support the Kashmir cause and they'll talk about the people. But whenever they're in power, they will not utter a single statement, sir. Why is that so?
Whether it is Omar Abdullah or Mehbooba Mufti or other pro-India parties, they are figures there. They are enablers for occupation there. And they know that they're quite handicapped in whatever they say or they don't say. I would also say that, their own position and political standing is being eroded by the BJP through electoral politics. They have swept, BJP has swept Jammu, for instance. There's no representation of any of the Kashmiri parties there, Kashmiris, pro-India Kashmiri parties. So in the long run, it's India's plan, or Mr. Modi's plan, to just turn Kashmir into a BJP state, BJP state. And they are aware of it. And the space that they had in the past it's being squeezed and shrunk. And now they are also launching, the Indian authorities are launching another policy of establishing settlements, illegal settlements of army officers, or like the ones you have in Israel, or confining the Pandits into small settlements, I mean isolating them from the Kashmiri population. So there are complexities. I think that India would be wise to talk and to communicate with the true Kashmiri leaders, which are the Hurriyat leaders. I would name Mir Waiz Umar Farooq, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, Shabir Shah, Yasin Malik. These are the leaders who really reflect and represent the aspirations of the people of Kashmir.
But these leaders have rejected the talks now with the Indian authorities.
They had to, because India is not recognizing Kashmir as a disputed territory. And so, I mean, this is their first precondition. This is their first precondition. And it's a just stand that they have taken.
Now, sir, talking about AJ&K now, the sort of development projects which are going on, please do inform our viewers about that also. And what are your what is your vision about AJ&K in general, sir? Are you satisfied with the ongoing projects, or do you believe that more needs to be done?
It's not just my vision, it's the combined vision of the ruling party, the government led by Raja Farooq Haider, the Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. It is fully supported by the government in Pakistan. And the vision has 3 points. The issue of Jammu and Kashmir on top. Second is good governance. And the third is development and prosperity. And we are working together. I mean, the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, in close collaboration with the government of Pakistan, we want to set some targets. We've already set some targets, and we want to achieve them as quickly as possible. When it comes to development, our priorities are, of course, good road, a reliable, resilient road network, good infrastructure, energy, generation of electricity and its provision to all the consumers in all parts of Azad Kashmir. We focus on high quality education, health services, including advanced health services for non-communicable diseases, but also basic health service.
So any major projects which are in the pipeline?
Yes, I mean, they are in the pipeline in all these areas. Our emphasis would also be on tourism, because Azad Kashmir is a beautiful place. People go to Neelam or Banjosa or to many other parts of Azad Kashmir. And we have very rudimentary infrastructure for tourism. We want to modernize it, and I think that that's a priority for our government. We also want to eliminate poverty. There are some small, Azad Kashmir is relatively prosperous, but still there are pockets of poverty, and we have to eliminate them. We have to revitalize our industry. There is industry in Azad Kashmir.
And what sort of industries and what sort of products are there?
All sorts of manufacturing plants were there in Mirpur. But then they are in a state of disrepair right now. And I can also tell you that in the area of education, it is our ambition that we have now achieved the targets about quantity. There are many schools. I mean, even in the remotest parts of Azad Kashmir, you have schools. And we are on the verge of universalizing primary education. But it's the quality on which we want to work. We have 5 universities in all the 5 districts, district headquarters. But we want to upgrade their quality so that we create and establish and refine centers of excellence in these universities, so that we attract students at all levels, graduate, postgraduate, postdoctoral students, not only from Azad Kashmir, but from Islamabad, Punjab, Karachi, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, from all parts of Pakistan. This is already happening, but we should have reputable educational institutions there, and we should have reputable health institutions there, health facilities there. This is our ambition.
Sir, the final question before we wrap up, sir. Since you have been a very seasoned diplomat and your services, they'll be remembered. But now, another assignment has been given to you. That is the president of AJ&K, sir. What sort of a difference do you feel, sir? As far as responsibility is concerned, as far as authority is concerned, as far as total expectation is concerned?
After getting elected, I addressed a press conference along with the Prime Minister, Raja Farooq Haider Saab, and somebody asked me this question. One of the correspondents asked me this question, said that you were in this very decent profession of diplomacy, and now you stepping into this new area and you're embracing politics, and what is the difference and how are you going to navigate through these new turbulent waters? And my answer was very simple, that the most respected ambassador is the one who has integrity, who is reliable, and people have confidence in him. I think that the same yardstick should be applied to politics. Politics is a trust given by the people to their representatives. And in that sense, it's a sacred profession, because you defend, promote, and protect the rights of the people. You aggregate, project, and enhance and augment people's interests. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's the mission that I have. And my motto, basic core motto, is very simple. I'll serve the people of Azad Kashmir. And I think that I remain confident that we'll succeed in this mission. The other thing is that I have found that we get politicized too easily. Mm-hmm. We see our societies through the prism of tribes and sects and different denominations. And I think that we have to close our ranks. We have to forge unity. We have to emerge as a strong, united nation. And for that, we have to really eliminate these differences that we have, because we have one cause, one mission, that is the realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and rule of law in Azad Kashmir, and economic development and prosperity there. I think that we should cooperate with each other for the achievement of these objectives.
Now, sir, since you've stepped into politics, I'm sure there'll be a lot of hindrances, a lot of problems also coming your way, because you're talking about the typical politics in Pakistan. So, sir, as a diplomat, what do you think? How you'll be able to sort of negotiate and engage yourself and come out as a success story, sir?
Politics is about consensus building. Very few people know about it. I mean, it's not about animosity. It is not about partisanship. It is also an attempt and an effort, a consistent effort, to work with multiple forces and bring them around to the common ground. And I think that I remain confident that in that effort, with the support of the people of Azad Kashmir and with the grace of and help of God Almighty, we will succeed.
Masood Khan sir, it was a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you very much once again, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you again. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz from our side.